Time now to continue our special series, Building Bridges, an exploration of China's growing ties to Latin America. Today, we drill down into China's links with Cuba. China's investments there are on the rise despite its economic slowdown. In 2014, President Xi Jinping visited the island nation with a delegation of entrepreneurs, signing 29 deals. China is already Cuba's biggest creditor and second largest trading partner in the Caribbean. Bilateral trade between the two countries was worth more than $1 billion in 2014. And just earlier this week, the two countries inaugurated the first direct flight from Beijing to Havana. Cuba hopes big to end business partnerships. Well, for more on all that, CCTV's Michael Voss joins us now from Havana.
Cuba has an impressive track record in biotechnology, from the world's first vaccine against meningitis B to new breakthroughs in cancer treatments. China has helped, providing computers and other equipment along with raw materials. Cuba exports medicines to China and also licenses its technology to manufacture there. There's a joint biotechnology working group which meets every 2 years looking for ways to expand cooperation. Now a Chinese company has agreed to build an export-based manufacturing plant in Cuba. It's a joint venture with Cuba's Center for Molecular Immunology, which specializes in developing anti-cancer drugs. Zulain Guerre is the center's commercial director for China and has a master's degree in international trade from Beijing University. She sees the new joint venture as a win-win project.
I think this is the best example how we can both profit from this relationship. There is China with the huge resources, with the financial support that can bring to Cuba, and there is Cuba with the product, technology, knowledge that can help China also to improve the industry.
Cuba and China are close political allies, communist countries with a shared ideology. China's President Xi Jinping included Cuba in his four-nation tour of Latin America in 2014. China's generous trade credits have made it the island's major supplier of manufactured goods, accounting for most of the $1.3 billion in bilateral trade in 2014. But China's presence in Cuba goes back to much earlier times. In 2012, Cuba celebrated the 165th anniversary of the arrival of the first Chinese laborers to the island. They imported thousands of Chinese to work on the plantations and later to build the railroads. Havana's Chinatown is one of the oldest in the region and at one point the Chinese community in the Americas outside of San Francisco, California. Chinese Cubans fought in the wars of independence against Spain and more recently along the form of counter-revolution. One of the lasting influences of these immigrants is the way Cuba has adopted traditional Chinese medicine. Some Cuban hospitals have a range of treatments, while acupuncture is part of the curriculum at Cuban medical schools. Now it's China's turn to look to Cuba for modern medical advances. It's a two-way relationship which goes beyond both politics and trade.
Rochelle, we've talked about business links, but there is another growth area, and that's tourism. As you mentioned in your introduction, there are now direct flights from Beijing to Havana. A record 3 million tourists came to Cuba this year, including Americans for the first time, and Europeans and others who want to see the country before it changes. Now with these flights, we should be seeing more Chinese tourists as well.
The first direct flight from China landed at Havana Airport on December the 27th. One of the first passengers off the China Airways plane was travel writer and blogger Sun Jian.
I've always wanted to visit Cuba. I have been to 96 countries already, and I always wanted to come here. One of the reasons is that we are socialist partners. Another reason is that I love Che Guevara.
The Cubans are well aware of the selling power of the legendary revolutionary Ernesto Che Guevara, and his face can be seen on posters, T-shirts, and even on walls throughout the city. Another attraction is the home of the Nobel Prize-winning American author Ernest Hemingway, who for years made Cuba his home. It's a must-see for many of the Chinese tour groups who come here. Wan Jung runs a travel company in Havana specializing in Chinese clients.
There's a lot that the Chinese like here. There's blue sky and clean air along with music, cigars, and dance. The Cubans are a warm people, and above all, the rhythm of life is different.
Some 30,000 Chinese tourists visited Cuba over the past 12 months. The hope is that with direct flights now available 3 times a week, the number of Chinese visitors will increase substantially over the next few years.
Cuba believes it could attract up to 100,000 Chinese tourists within the next couple of years. Rochelle.
Now, Michael, you were saying that the Chinese are investing in biotech, but it does seem modest compared to some other countries in Latin America. Why do you think that is?
Well, politically, Cuba and China may be close, but they share the same socialist system, they have the same communist party system, but economically they remain quite far apart. Cuba has not changed as much as China has economically. And you get the feeling that at times that Cuba believes China moved too fast and too far on the road to capitalism, while many of the Chinese, it appears, believe that Cuba's been just too slow in its economic reforms. So while we have seen investment in biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, it is, as you say, much more modest than in many other parts of Latin America.
Well, thank you very much. Michael Voss there for us in Havana.